Good morning, everyone. We have a very exciting show of Today y Mañana for you this morning. Be sure to get ready, get your brains, get a little coffee, get your brains working, because we have a lot of brain power on the show today.
This is going to be good today,
if we haven't, blown the circuit in the past, we're going to blow the circuits of downtown Charlottesville today with just this brain surge, because we have...
Well, who's here then? I mean, what are you talking about?
We have Keith Smith and Cristel Noel. So, I mean, experts of...
Cristel, I can understand, yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Be prepared for this.
It's payback. I mean,
Exactly.
Literally, it's payback.
Literally. So we're going to do a case study of a financial life this morning. So my job is to be someone who knows
I think you're
nothing.
supposed to attract people to the show.
No, this is. I think this
kidding.
will. We have a very sophisticated audience on Today y Mañana, or at least we like to pretend we do. That I think will enjoy just learning about what goes into a financial life, what you need to be thinking about as a home buyer, particularly if we're going to use a millennial as our sort of topic for today.
Right.
But as a home buyer, as an entrepreneur, we have a lot of those that we featured on the show, and just thinking about how the process goes, what are some of the questions you might ask, what are some of the answers you might receive. So just working through that and hopefully bringing some education and insight to people this morning.
I'm sure we will. Absolutely.
I feel good about it. I feel confident that we will achieve this.
That's what I like about you. Always confident.
Always confident. You have to...
The cup is always half full.
Exactly.
Sometimes even 3/4 full, even though
Sometimes
it's
it's even 3/4 full.
When it's only about an eighth.
Absolutely, yes, exactly. Look, it's 3/4.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're very excited to have you joining us this morning. And we have a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to do a financial case study. So we're going to be talking about the life of an individual and all the questions that may arise as you go through the home buying process, as you go through the insurance process, as you go through the financial planning process. And so we're going to talk a lot about that with two wonderful people, two good friends of ours and two great experts in their fields, which are Cristel Noel of Cristel Noel State Farm Agency and Keith Smith of Yes Realty Partners. So they're going to join us very shortly. As always, we're always appreciative of our partners. We have a new partner this morning.
We do.
We're very excited that we'll be partnering with Aqua Seville Hand Car Wash.
That's right, and it's that's
joining us. Jeff, a really fantastic guy, knows so much about business. And
not just business. I mean, it's funny because when you think about car washes, and I've been to a few, right? And there's truly no huge difference. And I remember, especially we had one in Carmel, California, and you go there, and the way they take care of your car, and it's the same thing here. The way they take care of the car, it's like it's like a baby. They just do it nice and easy. They make sure they cover all the spots, and it's a fabulous job that they do. It really is. I mean, I was looking at their website too, and it's incredible.
So we're really excited about that.
Very excited.
As always, we're presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Cristel Noel State Farm Agency, by GBS Financial Services, by Vitae Spirits, and by Seville Picnic. And just a heads up, a little partner news, I should say. Seville Picnic featured in Wine and Country magazine.
Oh, wow.
So Stephanie Devada
That's very nice.
And Seville Picnic featured in Wine and Country magazine for all the the amazing work that she does creating those beautiful picnic spaces, not just outside in the spring and fall, but as we've discussed before, like in the winter, there's indoor spaces that she completely transforms, and so you can have a beautiful time with your loved one and a perfectly prepared picnic for you in a beautiful indoor space, and it's all with Seville Picnic. So be sure to check out Wine and Country magazine.
That's fantastic. That's great. Great news. Great news.
Fantastic news. And so I think we're gonna just right to it.
Just jump right in.
Just jump right in.
You're going to introduce the two fabulous guests here?
It is my definite pleasure to introduce to you Cristel Noel. She's the owner of Cristel Noel State Farm Agency, and Keith Smith, one of the partners of Yes Realty Partners.
The
Thanks.
other one is?
The other one is
Smith.
Mrs. Smith, Yona Smith, which I mean, if we could have had her here instead
Yeah,
of
yeah,
you,
yeah.
we would have, but we won't go there.
I was waiting for that to happen. So I'm second
It was
string.
coming. You knew it was
Second
coming.
string. That's
Second
what I thought.
string,
See
but
what I
it-
gotta put up with?
But so fantastic to have you both on the set with us today. I've been excited about this show for multiple weeks now since we put it on the calendar.
Thank
I just
you.
want to say something though. So you gave me just a couple of notes just on the introduction, and you say you were introducing 3 people.
Yes, I mean you're already known here.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I
I
mean,
just want to make sure that
we'll let you
everybody
go
knew that I was
last.
here.
We'll let you go last. Xavier Opie of Emergency
Thank you.
Financial Services is also on the set with us today.
Thank you.
And I can attest that he also knows what he's doing. And so we'll go ahead and start. I did want to do a brief sort of like icebreaker, which is a little bit about you and your business and why you love doing what you do. So Cristel, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Alex. Well, good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. My name is Cristel Noel, and I have been a State Farm agent for 3 years, but in the State Farm company as a team member for more than 10, a little bit more than 10 years. I love what I do because it gives me the opportunity to really help people from the basis, to help them to plan for a really good future, for a financial stability, and for many other things that our Latino community, basically, it is, they don't have the information, enough information to do that here. So I love what I do because it gives me the opportunity to help a lot of people in that way.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know. We've known that since, I've known you for so many years. What is it now? It's
More
You're
than
not,
10.
you're not allowed to say
14.
how many years,
Well,
because
no, really.
she's only, what,
That's
26?
26,
She's only
yeah.
26. So I met her at 21, and I've known her for 7 years. So there we go. That works. Exactly. Just one of my oldest friends here, and a great asset to the Latino community for sure. Keith, how about yourself?
And I'm
For those who
19.
don't know you, 19. You get
what we
younger.
thought,
You get younger every year. It's
Well, I'm dyslexic.
I love
so,
it.
So I read well, actually, I can't.
No, 19.
No,
yeah,
that's-
that's
not
dyslexic
even-
at 19.
not-
Yeah,
not
you
even
look a lot
close,
younger
not
than
even
that.
close. So thank you guys. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Keith Smith. I'm a partner with Yes Realty Partners. But my story is I've been in the industry since 1987. So a few years on it, helping buyers and sellers. I'm a recovering developer and builder. I'm on my 10th step of my 12-step program, so there is help for us on that end of it. So through my career, we've built 600 homes, did a bunch of subdivisions on that end of it, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later. But in the great time of unpleasantness, we lost everything we had, and we've rebuilt it back up, and didn't lose what was important, which was my wife and my children. And God is good, and we're doing great, and we're loving to help people buy and sell houses. So we're very blessed. And
We are.
Information. What Cristal said was very true. We're in the information business, really. We're not in the insurance business. We're not in the home buying and selling business or the financial business. We're in the information and education business.
That's the
That's
key.
exactly
That's
right.
the key to it all.
That's
Thanks
exactly right.
for watching. Donnie Ornelas watching us today. Thank you again, Johnny. John Noel. I wonder who he is watching us today. John, a great friend. Anais Sadani is watching the show, and Melinda Schenken is watching the show. Thanks so much for watching today, Anais and Melinda. And then, of course, Xavier, tell us a little bit about. Do you need an introduction?
So I've been doing this for like about 2 or 3 years now. All right, you can tell by my gray
And
hair.
you're 20, right?
A little older.
older.
21, I think it was.
21.
Yeah. So I started way back in New York in Lehman Management Company, and then I went to Smith Barney, and from Smith Barney I started our own company, Cypress Asset Management, and about, I guess, a few years ago we kind of merged with 2 young folks, Nicholas and
3 young folks.
3 young folks. That's right.
should
Nicholas,
say.
Michael. Michael wasn't quite in there yet.
He was ready,
part.
but
He was
he
part of the
wasn't.
company, and Alex, and we merged the companies, and it's been a great ride, a tremendous joy to work with my 3 sons, and as Keith said, I think the most fun that I have, and I've worked in this business for a very long time, managing people's assets and institutions, etc. But working with people is the most fun, and the reason is because everybody that comes in has a different story. Their goals are slightly different. What they like and dislike is different. Their risk tolerance is different. And it's just like a little piece of puzzle that you try to put together, try to figure out what's the best strategy for them. And it's just talking to people. It's just fun. Sometimes it turns out to be like too much fun. I mean, as somebody Scrooge says at the end, he says, "This is too much fun." Sometimes I go there, I said, "I'm having too much fun doing what I'm doing. This it can't be."
Well, when that stops, you'll stop doing it.
That's exactly right.
There you go.
Exactly right.
Exactly. Dunya Ramirez, thank you for watching. Vicky Noel says, "Hi, Tristel." Thank you for
Hi,
watching,
Vicky.
Vicky. So, I mean, we'll jump right into it. 'Cause
Okay.
in this vein. So, our financial case study today, because we've had a lot of entrepreneurs on the show. So, one of the things I was thinking was, let's imagine you've got an individual here, married, just to make some of the financials simpler. If you're not married, small business owner, and I think we've talked a couple times on this show about just how a lot of millennials are now beginning to purchase homes.
Right.
And so we're talking older side millennial, born 1986 or so. In other words, they've had some time to establish a business. They've had some time to get an income. We're going to assume slightly below HUD's
Medium range.
area median income,
Yep.
so 80,000-ish a
Okay.
year. I think area median income is around 93 or
93.
so. Does not yet own a home, but is looking to purchase a home and thinking about some options there. And in terms of debt-wise, we got a automobile that's fully paid off, so nothing crazy there. We can go into some scenarios if we want to later on, but there's the basis there. And so, as a basic sort of intro, so you've got an individual of this nature, family, and they're ready to take that first step, and they're saying, "Okay, I'm looking now to buy a home." And so when they approach you, I think usually their first step, I think a lot of people don't yet think of what comes after. And so their first step is, let me call up a real estate agent, and let me talk to Keith. And so Keith, how does that sort of initial conversation go? And what are some of the things that they need to start thinking about?
So to play off Xavier's comment a little bit, it is very different for different folks, right? So we're making a case study, we're making an assumption based on a few high-level assumptions.
Exactly.
I'm assuming we have no student debt in this conversation? Okay, great.
That's what we're starting with.
Yeah, so, the real conversation is to sit down and have a conversation, right? Generally, you won't go directly into money or anything like that. What you generally will do is you'll sit down with Cristal or whoever your first-time buyer is. So tell us what your goals, tell us what your aspirations are, tell us what you're trying to achieve, and believe it or not, we listen, right? And at least from my perspective, believe it or not, we listen. And you ask a lot of W questions, right? Where, when, why, all that kind of great stuff. But where it usually really starts, I'm working with a first-time home buyer today. It starts on this iPhone I'm holding, right? Because what they're doing is they're looking at homes, right? And they're looking at stuff. And generally, the conversation will be, look, I really like this home over in such and such. And then I generally suggest that we have a meeting and we kind of slow things down a little bit and we try to figure out where your guys are trying to get to is how much home can I afford, right? So that's generally how we will work this conversation. You want to listen, you want to figure out what their goals and objectives are and start listening and mapping out what's the best case forward for these folks. You do this with the financial end of it.
Absolutely.
And then the second conversation generally is, okay, let's talk to a loan officer, right? So there's a component in this conversation that is not at the table, which is the loan officer, because what we want to do is we want to figure out how much a home they can afford, right? And then we move from there. Is that a good starting point?
It is a great starting point, because when you begin to talk about affordability and affording a home, that's when I think a lot of times people will say, well, okay, how does my savings, any debt, in this case we're talking no debt, but we might introduce that later, how does all this begin to affect it? And they start getting into financial planning here. And so you sort of talk to your financial planner and say, okay, what are the pieces you need to be seeing when someone, because I know we've had individuals come into the office and say, hey, I'm thinking of buying a home, what do you have to tell me as my financial planner?
So, and you know this very well, but I mean, when people come into our office, right, it's the whole picture. It's not just a piece of the puzzle that we're looking at, but it's the whole picture, right? And so there are 4 areas that we really begin to ask to see if we can find out a little more information. Obviously, important is, what's their income, what are their assets, right? Also, what's their expenses look like? Do they have any debt? What kind of debt do they have? Is it better off to pay off that debt, not to pay off the debt? And then also from an insurance perspective, we also take a look at that, is what kind of insurance do they have? What do they need? And when you're looking at a small business, as you mentioned, there are other areas where you need to focus on, because a small business, not all the time, their income isn't set. Sometimes their income may be good one year, not as good another year, et cetera. And as we also talked about, is you have to look at the incomplete picture. Is, yes, you're looking to buy a home right now. One, can you afford, and how much can you afford? Basically what Keith said, right? But also, how much insurance am I going to need? Do I have children or not? That's an important question, right? If they have children, do I need specific insurance? If I buy a house, I'm going to need insurance, right? And then retirement. In other words, I also have to build for retirement. If I have children, I might have to
Let's
build
start
for...
with them having a couple children.
Okay, so then you have to start the conversation of, you have to find the nice blend between saving maybe for your children's education and saving for your own retirement. And I think a lot of times people just focus on maybe their children's education and don't realize that their retirement is just as important. You can't just ignore that and saying, I'll take care of that later on, because the earlier you take care of it, the better it is. So again, it's a holistic approach of trying to figure out everything that they're trying to do. Same thing as Keith said, what are their goals? Long-term goals, short-term goals, right? And begin to try to figure out what they need to do in order to achieve those goals. And of course, once you have a better picture, we ourselves are able to say, given what we know, right? Given what we have an idea as to what the interest rates are out there as far as mortgage rates, right? More or less, this is the type of home you can buy, right? And then the next step is, okay, now you need to go see a real estate agent to try to figure out, what's out there, and maybe maybe they can certainly give you other type of advice that might say, no, you can also afford something more, or something, or you can't, or whatever it may be. And then the last step, but it's not, it's just a package, is what insurance do you know? Again, if you have children and you're the only earner of the company, of the family household, should you have some insurance, right? Life insurance, because what if something happens, right? Car insurances, home insurances, rental insurance. Once you buy a house, it's going to be so. It's a complete package that you need to look at, that we look at and say, here's all the pieces that you need to review and look at, right? Before you just say, yeah, I'm buying a house, right? Yes, you want to buy a house and it's going to be your home, but let's take a look at the complete picture and see where you are and what the next step is.
And Cristel, on this vein, just you mentioned insurance, and one of the things I'm always curious about is when someone comes in, obviously there's a lot of this individual we're talking about here, right, in our case study. I'm coming in here, let's just assume it's me, I'm coming in here saying, oh yeah, I'm ready to buy a home, I might need some home insurance. But obviously you as the insurance agent have to sort of figure out what else might I need. So I'm curious how that process goes to figure out what I actually need as opposed to what I think I need right now.
That's right. So as Keith and Javier said, we basically sit with the customer and review the whole case, like everything. Because a lot of the times when somebody's buying a home, they just want to focus. I just want to close, I want to make sure I just have everything to be able to move into my house. And we help them to do that because the lenders, the real estate agent, and the insurance agent have to be in the same page to be able to help them to have everything and close everything on time. So we help them to do that, but after that, I ask them to come to my office to review everything, because the most important part of everybody's I think lives is to have a base, like a really good foundation of how you're going to protect now that you got the home, that you maybe put a down payment and your whole family is living there. Now, how you're going to protect that if something will happen to you. And I find a lot of families that they don't believe in that. They are like, I'm set. I got my car, I have my home, I'm good. And you're like, no. Now you have more risk.
Exactly.
You own more. Now you have to protect yourself more. I love those conversations because when a customer, leaves the office, I feel better. I feel really good when they go out there and it's like if somebody dies or if their father pass or something happens, the kids are set, the family, the wife are set. And I think that now talking about homeowners insurance, a lot of the times they just want to get the less expensive policy because the loan and everything. So we tell them, we're going to help you to stay within the, budget and everything, but I want to make sure you understand what your homeowner's insurance is going to cover and what is not going to cover.
It's not.
Because they think that, I have insurance, 100% I'm covered. And sometimes that's not true. And you have to be prepared because now you are a homeowner and you have to have some savings in case, the AC unit goes out or something that is not covered under the policy. So we help them to understand, the property insurance and also the liability of owning a home.
Which is an interesting perspective. Is I think going in the transition from renting to owning, obviously we've talked about before the difference between rent and mortgage payments in the sense that once you begin the process of owning, you're putting equity, you're gaining equity in this home. But one of the things about owning a home though is now you would have to begin to think about the fact that since you own it, there are certain responsibilities that you have to pay for.
That's right.
That aren't immediately apparent, but that may arise in the future. And I'm curious how that conversation sometimes goes and how far people think about that.
So great conversation, and I'm so happy that Crystal's sitting to the left of me because the comment that was made, a huge percentage of buyers say, this is my monthly payment. I don't want to exceed that. And that's what we call our PI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I don't want to exceed this dollar amount. How much house can I buy for that, right? And in today's marketplace, that's a little difficult to come by because generally the product isn't there. And then, then you have this conversation, well, if we jump this up a little bit, this is how much your monthly payment is. But if you don't mind, can I ask a question?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So how does that conversation go? I'm a first-time home buyer, and I want the cheapest insurance possible. And because we have this conversation with our clients all the time, look, you need to make sure you're protected. What if the house burns down, right? Is it a replacement cost? Because sometimes cheaper isn't better. So what does that look like, that conversation look like from your perspective?
Well, we want to make sure that as they, we can control the rates. We can. So it's like we have a tool where we, put the address and basically give us all the characteristics of the home. We can tell them, we can give you a high deductible to be within the budget and to make sure that, you close on your home. But you need to realize that the lowest is your deductible, the higher is going to be your premium, and the opposite. So I want you to understand that we're helping you right now to make sure you close in your home, but we're going to review these, and maybe we can lower, we can probably lower the deductible within few years or something, but you need to realize that if something happens, your responsibility is like $5,000 or $6,000 because that's the only thing that we can do to lower the premium.
We can control it, yeah.
And they are like, okay, but as long as they know, I realize that, in insurance, there is a lot of misinformation. They call and they, well, I'm switching because my company, is not covering this. Well, let's review your policy. That's important to see if you have the rights or the company actually, it gives you this kind of contract. But at the beginning, when the first-time home buyers, we really need to make sure that they know what are they doing, what they are buying, and that we are going to help them to close their loan.
So that is why everybody at this table wears the title of trusted advisor. Right, so you're going to help me get in my first home, and then you're going to say, "Please come to my office," and then we can try looking at it on that end of it. It's an important component, the insurance, on the end of it. We talk about the best way to hedge against inflation is to own. But one of the two things that you can control is actually your insurance and your mortgage payment, right? So if you're not happy with company A and Crystal is a rock star and you want to switch that. Cristal, thank you. Cristal, I apologize.
It's fine.
I can barely speak English. And oh, by the way, I make up words, so just so that you know. Thank you, Jerry Miller. But most buyers don't know you can change companies in the middle of a loan process. Is that correct?
Yes. Sometimes we find out that lenders, real estate agents, and insurance, they already kind of have, like a team. So it's like, let me close this, let me help them as fast as possible. But then they realize it's like, I don't want to be with that company.
That's exactly.
I want to be with my insurance agent that has everything else. And it is when, I just feel that instead of rushing something, like we're going to do it, as fast as we can, but also with the permission of the buyer of putting that policy in place for them. And yes, I feel like, lenders and real estate, and it's not because I feel like once they close, now it's your responsibility, the homeowner's responsibility, and then is when your insurance is going to be there forever, and you're going to come with us, and you're going to be like, well, I didn't realize I was actually getting this deductible. I didn't realize I wasn't getting enough dwelling coverage. So that's our job, to tell them, okay. Sometimes the customers ended up, switching in the middle of the loan, just saying, I just rather to be with somebody that I trust and that I understand and that they speak my same language, because I actually work with a lot of Latino business homeowners, and they want to understand exactly what they are getting. And or sometimes they don't. They think like, well, I cannot switch my homeowner's insurance because they help me to have everything with this company, with this insurance. And I feel like if I change something, everything will change. I'm like, no, we help you with that. We do that all the time. Actually, if you get a better policy and it's less expensive, your total payment is going to go down.
Exactly, your total package is there.
So I think one of the keys, to this whole thing is that, things don't happen all in one shot and there you are, it's done, right? It's a moving target, all this. It's a moving project, because when you think about it, first-time home owners, right? Sometimes, we always talk about, you need to think about emergency funds, because once you buy a home, right? Once you buy a house, anything in the house can go wrong. I mean, your air conditioning can break, your oven can break. Whatever it is now your responsibility. If there's a leak in the roof, you're responsible, right? You can't just call the guy you rent from and say, hey, there's a leak in the roof, fix it, right? It's your responsibility. So you have to begin to understand that there's the need for emergency funds. But when you first buy, the chances are you're taking a very large portion of your savings, putting a down payment, and now you don't have anything, right? So we can understand why sometimes people say, well, at the beginning, it's like, all right, give me a high deductible because I need to pay less. So they can now begin to build their funds, right, their reserves. And then little by little, you go back and say, okay, what do my insurances look like? How can I change them? How can I better what I have in order to improve my situation, right? And I think that it keeps on moving. It's never a set, once you buy a house, you get the best, you're done. You constantly have to review what you have, what you don't have. Is it better? Am I better off saving a little more and waiting, or am I better off, choosing a better insurance today? And let's face it, I mean, insurance is, I always tell people, insurance is one of those things that you're willing to pay and hope you never have to use, right?
Sure.
Because the idea of your house burning down and say, that's okay, I got great insurance. No, it's like, it's not a good thing, right? I mean, it's like there's a lot inside the house that isn't insured, right? And you can never insure, right? There's a lot of memories in there you can't insure, right? So again, it's one of those things where you want to make sure it covers as much as possible, but then there's other aspects of your life that you say, I also need this, and so you have to weigh, each one.
So, Cristal, the way I look at it, it's a lot like a refi, right? That doesn't mean you're locked into this, right? You're technically not locked into a loan because you have the right to refi it. It's just how much it's going to cost you. But when you take a look at it, and my wife and I do this regularly, we take a look at our insurance policies. Does it cover what we want? God forbid my wife and I pass away. How is it going to impact my family on that kind of stuff? So it's important, I think, to do a regular insurance health check, right? I'm sure that's what you do, and you bring your clients in, and same thing on the financing side of it. We do a health check, or you, in your case, you pick up the phone and call Yona and say, do this, and I'll go, okay.
Exactly.
But the reality of it is, anybody who's watching this or listening to this, you should do a regular health check on your insurance and give Cristal a call and go ahead and, am I saying it right?
Thank you.
Yes, that was correct.
Well, anybody who watched the show that we did on Tuesday, I made up a whole new word that never existed. So,
Like Shakespeare, he did that all the time. What's the big deal?
oh well, I'm in good company then.
Absolutely.
He did do that.
But it's important for the folks that are watching and listening to know that you're not boxed into this. You have options on that end of it. So you should reach out and do a health check, even if you just recently closed, right? Do a health check. Is this a good rate? Or is there more services or more coverage I can get for the same rate or whatever? And that's what a trusted advisor does.
Yeah. That's part of the service. When we talk about this all the time, right? The difference between some companies, other companies, it's the service that you provide. And one of the services that you provide is being always looking out for each of your clients and saying, we need to review this right now, and you call them and say, come in, let's talk about this and make sure that everything's still working. And I'm sure it's the same in your industry, Keith, and your industry, Cristal, is that you review it and you say, you now have, all right, now you have a teenager, he's driving. Let's take a look at your insurance policy if it's properly set up for that.
So again, from our perspective, we have the conversation of the W questions, on trying to understand what they want. We'll connect them with somebody like Scott Morris with Ross Financial or whoever and they'll work on the PI side of it. And before we even go out, we say, please call Cristal, right? And say, okay, if we're going to buy a home of this value, what is my insurance options? Because we've got to add that into this monthly payment.
That's right.
And also, depending on the jurisdictions or the county or wherever you're looking at, we need to add the taxes component to make up this full per month cost. Then we go start looking. That's generally how this process works.
Exactly. So, even on the financial, when you looked at someone's financial plan, one of those keys is you want to make sure that you have the whole picture. Because if you're missing something from the picture, the numbers change. You sit there and say, this is a great monthly payment, and then someone says, but you got to add in insurance. And you're like, oh, wait, now everything else needs to change because my expectation has changed. And I think that ongoing nature is the beautiful part of it, because it's something that's so valuable, because life changes. Like, things change in the course of a year all the time. It's not as though you get insurance, you set an investment course, you get a financial plan, and you're like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to see Cristal for 10 years. I don't need to see Xavier for 20 years till I retire, and then they'll tell me how things are going. It's like, no. It's the value is because of the fact that you're going to see them more frequently than that. You're going to talk about this more frequently. And let's face it, like sometimes we also sit there and say, I buy this home, I'm not going to need Keith again until 50 years. Right, and it's like, no, there's a good chance you're going to be calling Keith. Well, sorry.
I won't be around.
You might not be around in 50 years.
I just had to do a quick
You're
count.
19. You were 19.
No, I lied just a little bit.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a good chance you're going to be calling Keith again sooner than you think it's going to be.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the other part, right? So, you deal with a couple like this, right? And whether they have children or don't have children, they may have small children at that point in time, right? And you say, okay, here's the house you can afford, and it may be a starter home, right? The business does well, things are moving along really well, and they say, okay, it's time for us. This backyard, it's like non-existent, and we want our kids to be able to, throw the football and not go over the, neighbor's yard every single time you throw it, something like that, right? So whatever it may be, you say, I need to now move up, right? I need a little larger home, right? Well, if you go to the person that you purchased the home from, he was a trusted person and the service was there, that's who you go back. And now you have that person that says, okay, by the way, those windows need a little cleaning before we sell it, right? The roof, the roof's a little older now. Whatever it may be, they bring something to the table, say, in order for us to sell this house, we need to do a couple of things here, and then we can improve the price, and then let's see what you can now afford on the other side, right?
But that's the same in every one of our businesses, because Cristal, I'm sure you're 100% right. If you're my agent and I'm buying another house, I'm going back to you, right? You've taken care of me, you've protected me through whatever, and the same thing with the funding. We should get some magic number from the money from the sky, maybe win the lottery.
That would be nice.
You wouldn't find me, I can guarantee you
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I can guarantee you that. So do you mind if I ask another
Yes, go
question?
for it. This is roundtable. We can all ask. Everyone's free to ask some questions. If you want.
So I was recently asked this question, and it's an insurance question. Maybe you can help me
Okay.
answer it. First-time home buyer, they were asked the question. I don't really know why they went to this morbidity thing, but they said, look, we get the loan, regular homeowners policy, yada, 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 loan, and we both die. What does the insurance cover? How does this work if we do that? So from an insurance perspective, do you have an answer I can give that client?
Yeah. So I was actually thinking about talking about that. So when I meet with a customer and they are like, our budget is very, very, small because we just bought a
Sure.
home,
Sure.
we just, put up a down payment and it was high or whatever. And I basically talk to them about the importance of protecting this. The mortgage or the lender, what they actually want to make sure is that the home, if something happens to the home, they have insurance, and the insurance will pay. But what happened to your family if you pass, or whoever is paying for the home pass? So what I do is I basically have a plan. When they come, I already have kind of this. I know who they are, how many kids they have, etc. So what I do is basically if they have a 30-year loan, mortgage loan, and the home is around 350, I present a policy that is 30-year term for $350,000. And then over the years, we can decrease that. If they pay already 10 years, we can probably go to lower amount. We don't have any more the mortgage life insurance that we used to have, because I think that it was, decreasing. And a lot of the times, Nick is about to get married, Congratulations again. They are a very young family. They buy a home, and they have this $400,000, home. But then they don't have kids right now, but they may have kids, in 1, 2, 3 years, so their liability goes up. So instead of going down, they have to increase that life insurance because now there is another person. So my response to that is you have to sit down with your insurance agent and help you to protect the asset that you now are getting, because for most of the families here in America, the biggest investment they do is buying a home. So now how you are going to protect that? The mortgage is already covered with the insurance policy, but your family. So we basically had really, really affordable term policies that are based on their mortgage. So, but the homeowner's insurance won't cover anything if they pass.
Of course, but then there's
The life insurance.
The life insurance
Covers that piece.
would cover that, and I think that's an important conversation to
Yes.
have.
Oh, yeah.
Because then who take this is a much complicated conversation, but thank you for doing that, because I didn't want to direct this client. Actually, I'm going to give you your name.
Thank
I
you.
didn't want to direct this client in a way that I didn't quite understand 100%. So thank you for answering.
No, you're
So,
welcome. Thank you.
one of the questions I have, Obviously, there's two ways of doing that, right? So on the insurance side, that is, you can buy term insurance, and now let's say they're both a young couple, right? So do you buy term insurance on each one, or is there because I know there's a second to die insurance, which obviously is also much cheaper. What do you think about doing something like that, where the cost is cheaper, but right at the point that the second person dies, that's when it kicks in?
Yeah, I always recommend on my side is to have an individual policy, and we can just talk about everything. They decide to separate or divorce or whatever, they don't basically mess with each policy. In that case, when
Right.
we go further about financial, like you guys do, it's different. But in this case, I always recommend, or most of the time, get each one of you a policy. You protect your wife and you protect her, so they get the same kind amount of death benefit and the same term, so they protect each other. Talking about how to protect the homeowners insurance, and that is inexpensive, because sometimes when the second to die, it just comes to a lot of it's just more complicated for them to understand, just because if they just take care of their own individual policy, whatever happens.
But what if they can't afford both? What happens then? I mean,
I
what if
think
they
that
say
the
I
difference
can't?
is not really big. The difference is not really.
No, but I'm saying, you're saying, so the husband and the wife both have to take a policy. But that's got to be more expensive than only one policy, right? So what if they say they can't afford it? What do you recommend then?
Well, if they can recommend, then we can look at into obviously the less
Yeah.
expensive plan, 100%.
Yeah.
Depending on the age, that's correct. The life insurance, the younger you are, the less expensive
course,
will
yeah.
be.
It
is.
Yeah.
So if it is a young couple, they don't have any kind of medical, issues or whatever, we can consider both. But you realize that a lot of people, they said, I can afford life insurance, or I can afford this.
Yeah.
But you can afford a really expensive car that, that you're paying all of this money, and a lot of the times they basically want to protect the car instead of the family. So you're paying all this money for this car, and your family is not getting any protection from you. So we try to discover where to get money to pay the most important part.
Sure.
So that's
Yes.
the reason why we do like a
a good
whole.
point.
That is a great point, because I think
Just-
people easily see financial capital. In other words, you can easily see a home or a stream of income or a car and say, okay, this has some kind of value that I must therefore protect financially with insurance. It's more difficult to look at human capital and say, well, my life to my family has a certain value that obviously cannot be quite replaced by insurance, obviously. But from a financial perspective, I have a earning potential. I have a stream of future income that has a certain value that I need to then insure. So that if that stream of income vanishes from my family life because something, God forbid, happens to me, they're still receiving something to compensate them for that future stream of income. And it's harder to wrap your head around. You say, oh, that car, if something happens to that car, I want to make sure it's good. It's harder to say, well, if something happens to me, X amount of income is gone from my family. I need to do that. And it's interesting you mentioned second to die, because that's almost as you begin to then age and you start to look from a financial planning perspective, second to die becomes really interesting as an inheritance tool.
It's a
Because you
legacy,
sit there and
exactly.
say, all right, I'm at an age where my children no longer need my income.
That's right.
However, is it better for me to leave them $100,000 that will be taxed, or to leave them a $100,000 second to die life insurance policy that is tax-free? And that's where you begin to get in the fun interplay
Where are
of
you in
where
life?
are you in life, and what's the purpose of it? Because there's insurance that is the purpose of reducing, you're trying to deal with a risk. And then there's insurance as, well, actually, this is somewhat of a financial tool, because a second to die to leave an inheritance to my children isn't really a risk. I'm not trying
No,
to deal with
exactly.
the risk. I'm trying to see
It's
how
a
can I
known.
leave my children $100,000 without paying taxes on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those interesting tools. And I just wanted to read a couple comments before we do this. We do have some great fans. Suji Schenken watching the show. Mariana Rubio, Roberto Vasquez. says, great program. Hiram LQ says, aquí estoy aprendiendo mucho. So she's learning a lot. Jess says, great program, she's learning. Eduardo Cruz is watching. Lily Graciela is watching. Elizabeth Lamarche watching. Ira Hernandez Toscano, your brother, watching. So a lot of people learning a lot.
And
today.
let me tell you something really fast about this. If you are looking into buy a home within the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this is the time for you to start working right now. The reason is because you don't realize the decisions you make right now will impact tremendously when you buy a home. And Keith probably had a really amazing experience on this over the years about somebody comes and they say, I just want to buy a home. Like if you're going to buy a book in the store. And it's like, no, it's not that easy.
Let's slow down.
Yeah.
Let's have a cup of coffee. Let's have a conversation. So we went back to this W questions, and this conversation is excellent. So it's always what if, and then what follows after that, right? So we would have a conversation with Nick over there, who's about ready to buy a house because he's getting married, and that's what he wants to do. And so what if, or what does this look like? And then we start having that conversations on that. But you're 100%. It's always good to start as, the best day to start is today, right? Not tomorrow, today. It was better to start yesterday, but today's a good day to start. Tomorrow, and then you bring in trusted advisors, and they help structure this by that. That's why I always believe this iPhone will never replace who's sitting at this table. It's a great tool to help to do that. But I do want to pivot a little bit more some insurance questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So we were talking a little bit about refrigerator going, right? Maybe having some sort of HVAC going out there. So what we do with, my wife and I do with our first-time home buyers is we always buy a 1-year home warranty insurance for that. So it's important for folks to know that that's available out there. And I'm just curious, do you have any product that fits that need?
We have endorsements.
Cool.
Yes.
I'd love to talk about that.
So, State Farm is the best insurance company in auto, home, life, and, So we are actually getting more really amazing homeowners policies where you can add endorsements. It's getting, as we were talking about.
It wasn't always like that, though.
No, you're 100% right. And the reason is because if you just have one policy that can help you in different scenarios, it's better than having multiple and buy multiple policies, and then you don't know where it's 1 year and it's like, I don't even know if I have this.
So talk about that rider for a little bit,
Simplicity.
because we encourage our buyers to talk to their agent, and if they don't have that product available, then we'll take like a 210 or some of the other warranties, and we'll fund that for 1 year, which generally is between $600 to $800. But what'll happen is if you're in your house for 1 year and your refrigerator dies on you, I believe you have some sort of minimum payment, $75, something along those lines. And they'll send somebody out. I mean, you don't have to do anything. It's done online. They'll send somebody out to repair it. If they can't repair it, they replace it. Folks don't know that's out there.
Right.
And if you take whatever this amount of money is and stretch it over a year, it's not a lot per month. It's one of these per week. Or it's one of these. One of these lattes I'm holding in my hand. But that's an important conversation to have. And that's why this holistic bring all your team members, it takes a village, is so important in this conversation. So I'm so excited that you have that product.
You don't know how much a homeowner's insurance can cover. It's unbelievable. Sometimes I even read every endorsement, and we have many, a lot of endorsements that I'm like, wow, I'm impressed about how much a homeowner's insurance can add, that protection.
Which is the value of talking to an expert. I mean, if you walked in there, if I went on to online shopping of homeowners insurance, I wouldn't even know where to start. So, hey, basic homeowners, what do I even add? What do you type in? What do you search? There's so much that goes into that, but you need someone to sort of navigate you through that and say, all right, given your situation, here's what I think is valuable to you. Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
This is not buying a plane ticket.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you buy a home and you're like, oh, homeowner's insurance is in the back of your head. Like you don't really want to know. You don't really even want to sit down and talk about it. However, it's the most important insurance that you have because it's the most expensive thing that you are buying.
So this home warranty conversation, I cannot overstress how important it is to have that conversation with Cristal and your agent. We have it on our home, and sometime I think the insurance companies go, no, because I've replaced my refrigerator, my cooktop that were 20 years old. And the conversation that we have is, well, hold it, it's 20 years old, they won't cover it. No, that's not the way this
Right.
works. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. You have an endorsement that we have to explain how it works, the deductible, and how much it will increase in your policy every year if you get this.
Sure.
And many others, but yes. And also the importance of really knowing what type of plans you're going to make. That's really important. And a lot of people, they don't really know this, that once they call the company, the insurance company, like to make a claim, it's already on the record. And sometimes, it affects the rate, even they didn't pay a claim.
Oh, can I ask
So
a
it is
question?
very important for them to know. Yeah. Yeah. You have to
didn't
really
know
make
that.
sure instead of calling the 800
You gotta
number,
call you.
they have to call me and say, this happens.
What do I do?
Do you think that is worth, what do I do in this case? And I will be like, I will recommend you to get a quote from a contractor. Call me back. And we check what is the best. I mean, if it's something that it has to be, it's urgent, no, I help you, let's get with the claims department and whatever. But if it's something that you think that, I don't know if my company is gonna cover, don't call the company right away because it's gonna look zero. The claim is gonna be zero.
Right.
But it's gonna be already in the record of that address on your home. So it's important for you to really know because at the end it may not cover anything, but it's already there.
So what you're sharing is, you had something happen to your home, you pick up the phone, call Cristal, say, look, this is what happened, I think it's about $500 to fix it, and your deductible's $1,000.
Exactly.
What you're gonna say is, why don't you fix
Yeah,
it, because if you
Yep.
do that, your insurance is gonna go up, or if it's $2,000 and your deductible is $1,000, you might say, it just might be in your best interest
That
to
is
do it this way, which goes back to Xavier's comment of start building a reserve once you start closing.
Yes, and also we need to realize that buying a home, we also have to have responsibility. It's not like the insurance company is going to pay everything. We have some responsibility, like in a car. We have a collision deductible of $500. That means that the first $500 is my responsibility. The rest will be covered by the company. But also in a homeowner's insurance, you have to realize, like, I'm paying so much for homeowner's insurance. I get a lot of calls like that. And it's like, yes, but you are protected in case your house burns down and you lose everything. Like you are insuring 400 million, whatever is your house worth. You're not just paying for something, you're paying for whatever.
I'll take one of those
something
400 million
happens.
sales. I'll take one of them.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Where's that one? I'll take
Imagine
that
the
one.
premium on that.
400,000, sorry.
Oh, I'm just thinking about the commission.
400,000.
No, I know what you're thinking. I
I
understand
was thinking
that.
about the commission, and I might give you guys a call and go, hey, here you go.
That's some money to invest.
Just saying.
No,
You got me all
Yeah,
excited.
sorry,
Just
sorry.
saying.
Absolutely, absolutely.
400,000.
One thing I wanted to ask and get into before we close this here is, how are the ways, I know this happens in finance, that being an entrepreneur, being a small business owner, adds to the equation certain advantages and risks that you have to think about. And so I wanted to just run by each of you, what does being a small business owner in this case sort of change about the conversation when you're talking either financial planning / retirement, insurance, or home buying?
So we talked a little about it before, right? I know there's a difference is when you run your own business, there's uncertainty, right? In other words, most of the time, you don't know exactly what you're going to earn. Obviously, once the business grows to a certain level and you're saying, I know I can pretty much guarantee myself 100 grand, 150 grand, whatever that may be, you feel more comfortable. But nevertheless, it's your business. So most of the time, the salary you're making and what you're earning, vacillates 1 year from another, right? So you can't project forward and say, well, I can afford this because between my insurance, my taxes, my mortgage rate, et cetera, I need to make sure I got, $3,000 a month, and you're sitting there going, yeah, I did that this year, I'm good to go. Well, you don't know that next year. What if it's 2,000? What happens then, right? Or, if it's greater, that's better. So with a business owner, right, an entrepreneur, you have to, once again, look at their business and say, how stable does this business really look? and what kind of expectations do we see in this business, so that we can pare it down and say, you're not ready to make that jump. It looks like this year you had a great year, but this was a great year. Look, you had this one particular client. He paid a lot of money. He's no longer a client, a one-time deal. Can you guarantee it's going to happen next year, right? So it's, again, as Keith and Christelle say, there are conversations one must have.
Conversely, of course, you also have certain benefits in the sense of there are ways to save as a small business owner that save you a little bit more on taxes, thereby enabling you to say, well, I would have saved $10,000 this year, right? I save X on taxes because I'm using a simple IRA or a SEP IRA, and now I have a little extra to put into that emergency fund.
Right.
And
Yeah, the ability.
There's
True.
the ability to be flexible with certain things as a small business owner that you don't necessarily have if you're getting a W-2.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. The ability, I mean, once you have your own business, the ability to begin to save in a meaningful fashion is much greater than in a normal, if you're working for a normal company. And second, as you said, yes, I mean, you can help your taxes a lot more when you own your own business, right, than you can if you don't. Yeah.
And Christelle, how does that come into play? Because I know then you start getting into a little bit of, I know you worked with a lot of small business owners to do both the business and the personal side.
Yeah, so about small business owners, we love them. We actually are the number 10 in the country right now for insuring the small business owners with a State Farm. We love it because it is not, you're not just coming as a Xavier Urpi, but you also come to the office as an emerging company. So you are two entities or in my office, so I need to make sure that I cover everything in both sides. The most important part is making sure that your future income is protected. And that means to have a really good liability coverage in any type of personal policies and business policies. Because if something will happen, you will be in trouble and you're going to have $25,000 for one person that gets injured in an accident, which is going to be nothing, and then you will pay everything else. So as a business owner, you want to make sure that you have a personal liability umbrella policy of at least $1 million, at least,
Yep.
And that is not easy to get either, because if you have bad driving record, you can have that.
Interesting.
So it's very important to have a really good base, foundation in like, what do you have? Because if you don't have that, you won't be able to grow. Like if you are growing, but something like this happens, then everything
Tough
will
to
go
feed
to
out from under you.
Exactly.
Doesn't your credit score also impact the rates and stuff?
Yeah,
Is-
people don't know that.
That's
but
an
it's true.
important
Yeah.
thing to talk a little bit about. So your credit score, what it may be, impacts the rate. So again, it's part of the reason why you have to bring the team to the table. Somebody smarter than me can figure this out, but I believe the percentage of gross domestic product of small businesses is huge. Right? I mean, I want to say the number is 80%. I may be wrong, but it's a large number, right? So most of our economy is driven by small businesses, driven by folks that are sitting in this studio that we are sitting in here.
Half of all GDP.
Half is half.
Half of the
I was
entire
a little-
country's
I was a little off.
output.
I still got
in small
excited about
business.
that 3%.
That's still
$400
huge.
million.
I mean, consider how big this country is, that
Yeah.
half of
Yeah,
the
that
entire
is.
production of the country is small business.
So that's the most exciting question that you've asked this panel on this, because a lot of folks don't know from the lending side, but that's why you've got to bring these important trusted advisors. I don't know if Johnny's still watching, but you're going to need 2 years tax returns, right?
That's correct.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right? So if you open up a business this year, that this isn't going to quite work out for you. Back to, it might take a couple of years of planning and sitting in front of your trusted advisors, your financial folks, your insurance agent, your particular lender, and see what my package or my financial picture needs to look like, because you're going to need at least 2 years of that. And it's also important on how you've set your business up. Right? Are you an LLC? Are you an S corporation?
Right.
Are you a C
Yeah.
corporation? How this all flows to you personally? It doesn't flow to you personally. So there's another component that's not at this table, which is your accountant, right? And that
Very
accountant
important.
needs to kind of help you through that process. So again, I guess the bottom end of it, if you're looking into this, reach out to a trusted advisor, start this conversation, start looking at this big picture. What does it look like? Bring the right people to the table. This is like if you're a small business owner, you understand this concept.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, of
Putting
bringing
the
the
team
right
together.
team together and making some magic work. But that's the lending regulations are much stricter than what they were 10 years ago. So I would encourage you to get in front of these folks and have that conversation.
And just my last advice that I actually had that review with my team just like a week ago, just knowing what do you want. A lot of people, we don't know what do we want. We don't know if we want this type of home or this type of home. Knowing what do you want in any personal life, financial life, whatever, it will easier to get there than not knowing. So start planning, take it step by step. I ask my team, where do you want to be in 5 years? How can I help you to be there? So it's the same with each situation. Exactly. How you are going to be able to get your home with our help, step by step. Just don't try to do it the last minute.
It's so true, because sometimes when we have an initial conversation on financial planning, the first question is, what are your objectives? What are your goals? And people do a pause because they sit there and say, I didn't actually think of that. And it's why that first conversation is so important, because whether they're coming into your office saying, yeah, I need this insurance, and then you sit there and ask, well, what are your goals? And then they sit there and they say, well, maybe it's not what I thought it was. Or they come in and say, I want to buy a $500,000 house, and you sit there and say, well, let's talk about your goals. And then by the time you get through the list of goals, you say, well, I actually don't want a $500,000 house anymore.
So I referenced these W questions, right? So the first question we're going to ask, Christelle, what's your why? Right? Why do you want to do this? Right? What's your why? And everybody's different, right, on what their why is.
Yeah.
And that helps you guide the conversation along to bringing the trusted people into the table.
It's the education process that you mentioned before, right? Because a lot of times people come in and that you start chatting with them, and they say, well, I didn't know that. Okay, or gee, I had no idea that that's how it works. And so that's the whole process, is that there's, in what we do, there's just a lot there. And it's perfect. What you mentioned before is, if you're thinking of buying a house, you got to start today, without any doubt, because truly your credit score is important. You can't just go to a mortgage company and say, I'd like to borrow, $300,000. Say, what's your credit score? Well, I don't know, I have no idea, but I got a job now. It's like, really? Okay. It doesn't work out.
Or as a business owner, you have a really good, cash flow right now for the next 2 years, but that doesn't mean it's going to give you the $1 million house you want.
Right.
You may have the down payment.
You're lowering my sales price a little bit here.
From 400 to
We said
Well,
400 million.
I
not
She
400
meant
million.
100 million.
I forgot I wasn't in Hollywood.
There you go. Do you mind if I?
Yeah.
So, you know what the worst feeling in the world is for a real estate agent, for somebody like Yona and I? That you get the phone call from somebody and says, I saw a home on Realtor.com and I'm in love with it and I want to buy it. And then you sit down and let's have this conversation and find out they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And there's no worse feeling in the world to sit down with somebody and say, look, I get it. These are the things we need to help you with. So maybe next year or the year after you can get that. Or, maybe we ought to sit down with Emergent Financial. We ought to sit down with Cristal. We ought to sit down with a loan officer and kind of start this process over a little bit. That's part of why I don't like the apps on the phone, because people just fall in love with
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, they just punch it in and say, oh, yeah, I can afford it.
They fall in love with it, and then we have to go through this education process. So,
You can afford it yet, but you will. Or like a lot of real estate agents, they don't really want to show you homes. At least you are pre-approved.
So we don't do that. No,
I love that. I love it, but as you say, it's sometimes what if they don't?
Well, obviously you have to do it in a caring and sensitive way, right? No, I'm not going to show anything to do that. That's where this conversation comes into place and say, look, we're not going to say, oh, by the way, I'm not taking you out till you get that.
Yeah, a lot of people.
But in reality, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And
for their benefit.
It's for their benefit, but you have to coach them and mentor them through that process to get them there and say, okay, great, now let's go start looking out. Because I always have this conversation. I walk Cristal into this beautiful house. I haven't figured out what you can afford. I haven't figured out anything like that. You fall in love with it, and then all of a sudden I got you with tears. This happened to my daughter, by the way. Didn't, right? 30 years of being around, 35 years of being around this business, you'd think she wouldn't have done that, but she did. And we needed to go rescue the situation where she was crying. But Daddy, I love it. I said, okay, let's slow down. We'll get you there.
Exactly.
So,
It is. It is the education piece and setting the expectations, helping people. It's helping people figure out what they want, what they need, what they can afford to get to what they need to do to get to where they want to be.
Right,
You know,
100%.
and that's what you both help with. That's what we all
Yes.
help with. This has been so fantastic. I just really appreciate you both
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Yeah, it's you know, you learn, and that's
You learn
the
so-
beauty.
I've
You
learned
learn
so much.
something. You learn something
I
new.
didn't know a lot
It's
of
going to
what
help
we
us in
learned
our
today.
financial plan.
It is. It will help us in our financial plan. I need
just
to
call
read,
us, we'll help you out.
I do need to read this one comment from Nicholas Urpi who says, "I didn't realize I was going to be the universal test case for today." Like if you should have thought
You
of that
are.
before you got engaged. Once you got engaged,
Does he
you would
really
been
have
the
anything
universal
ever to
test
say,
case.
right?
I
He
mean,
doesn't- he
obviously,
doesn't
all he has is these little snarky comments that he makes. That's
So, for those who are watching, and for your benefit, I bring the Urpi family on the show that I do, and
Right.
and I have to be honest with you. I expected to get beat up a lot more than I did because we tend to do zingers back and forth and have a little
Oh,
fun. So
yeah,
thank you for
love it.
being kind to me. It
Oh,
must-
We're very generous.
yeah. Nick wasn't on the set. Today.
That's right.
I think it had something to do with this wonderful person to
There
my
you go.
left.
Christelle brings out the
Thank
best in us.
you.
I have to say.
Thank you.
Christelle
Thank you
always
so
brings
much.
out the best.
You guys did too, and I love to be here.
Absolutely love it. Love it. Old Forward Adelante team.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of Forward Adelante, always proud to partner with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Appreciate all our partners: Emergent Financial Services, Cristel Noel State Farm Agency, Vitae Spirits, GBS Financial Services, Johan. So he is an accountant. We're going to have
That's
him
right.
on at
That's
the
right,
beginning of
yeah.
January. So
Because that's
he's gonna
when,
come on
yeah,
the show.
exactly.
That's a good
That's
person to
when
bring in.
Nobody likes to think about taxes in December, but boy,
Exactly.
January 1st, it just
January,
hits
we
you
start
right in the
thinking about
face.
The
taxes.
fact that
So-
you've got an accountant to show up on January 1st in the middle of tax
That's a
season.
lot.
Well, it's not
It's
January 1st,
huge.
but it's in the middle of January,
Right in
yes.
the middle of
Yeah.
January, yeah.
Well,
No,
even
he's
worse, yeah.
he's gonna come on and talk a little bit about.
Whether he likes it or
what
not,
he
he's
does.
coming.
He's coming. He's coming, and so I appreciate him. Appreciate Sivo Picnic, featured on Wine and Country Magazine, and we appreciate Aqua Seville Hand Car Wash joining us as a partner. Next week's show also going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a little bit of a surprise. So
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
So, but it'll be very much in the Christmas spirit. I
Nice.
believe will be next week's show. So be sure to stay tuned for that one. Always appreciate the audience for watching us. Thanks for all your great comments today. We had some great comments, great thoughts here from the audience. Really appreciate you all. Always appreciate being on the I Love Seville Network and set. Jerry and Judah, thanks for, as always, Judah, for making us all look good. I mean, Cristel didn't need help to look good, but the rest of us did.
Good save.
Some more than others, huh?
Good save, buddy.
I remembered that one. And just always appreciate the work he does behind the camera, and always appreciate you, Papa, for
Thank you.
being on the set
Thank
with me. So thank
being
you all
there.
for watching. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Cristel. Thank you, Keith, for coming
Thank
on the
you.
show.
My pleasure.
Fantastic. Let's do this again. We will do this
I
again.
love it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank
I'm
you.
in.
Thank you.
And
I'm
thank
in.
you for watching us today. And always look
Happy
forward to seeing
holidays.
you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, and we will see you hasta mañana.